Hey, what's going on, guys? This is a little support video for distance learning assignment number 5. We're going to be doing some trigonometry here and basic stuff. You guys should be familiar with SOHCAHTOA, as in sine, cosine, tangent of an angle, where you're looking for the opposite over the hypotenuse, or the adjacent over the hypotenuse, or the opposite over the adjacent of a right triangle. The only thing new that might be something that you haven't seen before is cosecant, secant, and cotangent, but really all those are the reciprocals of the three trig functions that you've learned. So if sine and cosecant are reciprocals, then it just means that whatever sine is, you just flip it upside down and take the reciprocal, and it's cosecant. If you want secant, just take whatever cosine is and, again, take the reciprocal, flip it upside down, and you have secant. And if you want cotangent, take tangent, flip it upside down, and you get cotangent. The homework is pretty short as long as you know what you're doing. So here, I'll do an example with you. I've left this assignment pretty simple because there's another version of this question with radicals. We'll deal with that next week. I want you guys to be able to focus on taking reciprocals and getting the ratios easily. So 6, -8 is a point. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the coordinate would be somewhere right over here. And I draw myself a right triangle from the x-axis. Okay, so notice the triangle is never drawn from the y-axis. It's always sitting on top or below the x-axis, depending whether you're in quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, right now we're in quadrant 4. I can label the sides in terms of their size. So 6 and -8. This is the angle that we're referencing from. So it's called a reference angle. And so we are going to find the sine, the cosine, the tangent, the cotangent of that angle. And I can actually label that theta. Okay. Or that's actually the reference angle. If we actually wanted the angle that was given to us, we'd start on the x-axis in quadrant 1 and draw ourselves a circle until we hit the hypotenuse. And so I'm going to call this theta prime. All right. Normally, when we find an angle for a trig function, we start with the theta prime, and then we'll get the reference angle, which is that angle in here. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. Right now, you just need to know if I'm looking for opposite and hypotenuse, I look from over here. The opposite is -8. The hypotenuse, well, I don't know the hypotenuse, so let's go ahead and figure that out. So if I want the hypotenuse, it'd be Pythagorean theorem. C squared is equal to 6 squared plus -8 squared. I'm going to square root both sides. So C is equal to 36 plus 64 is 100, right? And then square root of 100 would be 10. So in this case, my hypotenuse is 10. So with that said, if I want sine of theta, I would just write opposite. Again, from this angle, this is my hypotenuse, and I'll label it actually. Let's label that. This is my hypotenuse. This is opposite of the angle, and this is next to, so that's my adjacent. So opposite is -8, hypotenuse is 10. So it's -8 over 10, which is the same thing as -4/5. Well, if I have -4/5 for sine, that means I have its reciprocal. So cosecant could be abbreviated as cosecant theta, and that's -5/4. All right. If I want cosine now of the angle, so again, I'm looking from this angle, adjacent over hypotenuse would be 6 over 10, or 3 over 5, which means now, again, I can have its reciprocal. Just be 5 over 3. And then lastly, tangent and cotangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So the opposite is -8 over 6, -4/3. And then cotangent theta is -3/4. And that's it. All right. I kept this week's lesson pretty easy because the next lesson we'll do it with radicals and we'll bump it up with figuring out the angle. Just taking it one step at a time, guys. Hang in there, and hopefully this assignment won't be too bad. And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email.